Pull up a chair, friend. Imagine we're gathered around a kitchen table or a backyard fire pit, swapping stories that cut deeper than the surface of life. The story I want to tell you isn't a fable or a fairy tale. It's the oldest story we have, carried through generations, told in tents and marketplaces, whispered at bedsides, and thundered from mountaintops. It's the story of how the world was made, how it was lost, and how it's being won back. But I'm not going to tell it in lofty words or churchy jargon. Instead, I'll tell it with the kinds of pictures we know in our bones, the weight of debt and the relief of it being canceled, the sting of betrayal and the joy of a promise kept, the ache of being homeless and the welcome of walking back through the front door. I'll use the language of gardens and fields, storms and rivers, family feuds and reconciliations, workdays and weddings, because that's how the ancient storytellers spoke, and that's how we still feel life most clearly. The goal here is simple: to trace the shape of redemption from Genesis to Revelation as one continuous story, flowing like life itself: creation, loss, rescue, renewal, and homecoming. Along the way, you'll hear echoes of tents and gates, yokes and thresholds, but translated into the images of our own world: front doors and mortgages, heavy backpacks, and long-awaited celebrations. So settle in. Let's step into this story together. In the beginning, it felt like walking into a brand new house. Fresh paint, sun through clean windows, a table already set, the quiet thrum of a home that works. Every room had purpose. The builder's initials were stamped on the beams, his touch in the grain of the wood, his voice like music in the hall. He handed the family the keys and said, "Keep the lights on. Tend the garden out back. Make the place sing." We were meant to carry his name the way a foreman wears the company logo: trusted, visible, responsible. But a smooth talker slipped onto the porch and sold us on a shortcut. One bite, one deal, one "you deserve this" later, and we slammed our own door. The lock clicked behind us. The home we were made for kept breathing warmth, but we stood in the yard with our bags and our pride, pretending we didn't care. We tried to build other lives: tents in the ditch, pop-up shacks, parties that ended in headaches and bills, but the ache never left. Dispossession settled in like winter. We could still see chimney smoke rising from the place with our name on it, but we couldn't get back in. From that first night on the curb, the story became a rescue. We learned words like debt and lien and eviction. We learned how a name can fade from the town records when nobody steps up at the courthouse. And we started whispering about a relative, someone older, stronger, steady as a steel beam, who might show up at the right desk, lay down what we could never gather, and say, "Put it in my name. They're with me." Sometimes a neighbor helps you over a fence. Sometimes what you need is a kinsman who can stand in front of a judge and change your future. We needed that. One day the need got a face. We were working double shifts in a brickyard called Egypt. No overtime, just quotas and threats. Our backs bent, our hands cracked, and the owner's profits climbed. Then the builder, the one whose initials were on the old beams, broke the padlocks like brittle twigs. He painted our doorframes with mercy, like a neon vacated sign the destroyer couldn't miss, and walked us past county lines with an east wind at our backs. The river that should have drowned us split like automatic doors opening as we approached. We stepped through, blinking in the light. On the other side, he taught us how to live free, how to pitch a tent that wouldn't rip in storms, how to feed on provision that arrived with the morning, how boundaries and vows don't box love in, but keep it from leaking away. We told the story at every table. We were owned. Now, we belong to him. Freedom came with a rhythm. The calendar filled with mercy, like holidays you actually looked forward to. Every seventh day, rest, phones down, tools hung. the art of doing nothing together in the presence of someone. Every 50th year, a jubilee, mortgages burned, prison gates swung wide, for sale signs yanked from family yards and tossed in the truck bed. The high priest crossed the curtain once a year, the way a surgeon steps into an operating room. Steady hands, focused eyes, and the stained ledger on the desk got covered. Not ignored. Covered. Accounted for. Love didn't pretend the mess wasn't real. It took responsibility for it. In a small town called Bethlehem, the shape of rescue got even clearer. A respected man walked to the county seat and redeemed a field in danger of sliding out of the family. Papers were signed. Witnesses nodded. He took a widow and a foreigner seriously when others didn't. He spread his coat like a porch roof that keeps the rain at bay. It didn't make the evening news, but it echoed. A strong person using strength to keep a name from dying out, to keep a home from going dark. That's what redemption looks like when it's wearing boots and carrying a checkbook. Still, we had a talent for lighting our own fires and then blaming the sun. We scorned the one who freed us and wrote our names on the old contracts again. Exile came not as a thunderbolt, but as a slow foreclosure. Notice on the door. Storage boxes stacking up. The sound of your own footsteps leaving a street you love. We hung our guitars on the wall in a city that didn't know our songs. And just when despair was getting fluent in our language, the prophets started talking like road crew foremen. "Clear a highway," they shouted. "Move the debris. The king is coming back through and we're going home." They spoke of a heart transplant, not a tune-up, not a fresh coat of paint on rot, new framing from the inside out. God talked like a husband who hadn't given up. Courtship words, second-chance vows. Even a valley of nameless bones started clicking together when his wind moved through. First skeletons, then muscle and skin, then breath, then a crowd standing like they'd never lain down. Then he came, quiet as sunrise. He stepped into the water with us, the kind of man who stands in line, though he could skip to the front. He didn't need to confess anything, but he stood in the river and said, in effect, "Their story is my story now." He walked the desert without the shortcuts we love, and chose obedience where we always bargain. He called himself a door, a good shepherd, a road that goes home. He touched people no one would touch, and treated cheats and dropouts like kin. The old words, rescue, ransom, release, started following him like kids following an ice cream truck. Shackles fell. Shame lost its volume. He was Israel all over again, but faithful. He was the big brother every younger sib prays for at 2 a.m., and love did what love always does in the end. It paid. Not to the crook on the corner, not to the squatter who kept changing the locks. It paid the way a firefighter pays when he runs into a burning house and doesn't come out until he's carrying someone. It paid with a life laid down outside the city limits, where the dump smokes and the world hides what it can't fix. He wore our warrant, took our sentence, shouldered the long walk, and didn't stop when the road got steep. The cross was not God haggling with a bully. It was God taking our disaster onto himself so thoroughly that there was none left for us to carry. He became the covering. He was the price. He planted himself in the ground like a seed, and the earth closed over him like a ledger finally shut. Before sunrise, a stone rolled like a garage door easing up, and the world took its first real breath since the beginning. A gardener spoke a woman's name, and the whole future pivoted. The first paycheck hit the account, the down payment proving the job was real. The first fruit stood there, alive, proof that the harvest isn't a fantasy. Death didn't disappear, but it lost its swagger. It turned from a brick wall into a doorway, with light on the other side. He showed his scars like someone showing old medals. Wounds, yes, but now they told a story we wanted to hear again. Let's pause and pick up again in part 2.